Adam, hello, hello, hello. On this beautiful Friday after morning. And today I have with me the energy of uh, the one we all knew of and loved as Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I have to say that his energy is probably the calmest energy I've ever experienced coming through me. I literally want to just be as still and as quiet as possible. And the subject matter for today is that you are love, you are light. And how he's going to express this is going to be different. I want to say something in terms of being a spiritual medium. There's a process of allowing, a process of surrender that has to be fully understood and grasped. Your willingness to surrender what some of you call your ego or your mind, that shattering of information in your consciousness, loans itself to being able to open up to realities of being and existence that you can't otherwise with a mind that is keeping you distracted with it and what it is attached to. The fundamental consideration of the idea that you are love and you are light are words that in the English language will not necessarily enable you to understand the experience of that nature of your being. When you can relegate your thinking to silence, it makes it very easy for you to begin to consider what I'm saying more effectively and easily. It's not that difficult unless you are really entangled in thinking. That thinking is the way you will understand what you are. But I want to be clear that thinking simply constitutes your focus on a particular subject, object, or matter. It does not liberate you from thinking to know what you are. To comprehend that you are love and light, you must be able to let go of everything and anything else that is like that. Your mind, your body, your individuality even, to fully comprehend and appreciate this concept of being love and being light. In your awareness of thought, you have achieved a very important step towards moving in the direction of understanding who you are and even beginning to grasp what your purpose is here. That first step of being able to make that distinction between yourself as the thinker and the one that is the thoughts. At the moment of physical death, there is little or no choice in that regard. At the moment of physical death, you will have to let go of your thoughts. You will have to let go of your individualized identity as a personality. It is just what happens at death. Now, if you are at that point in physical death, as I was, where I was not too concerned about who I was or who I would be, there was no attachment to any of that. So the movement from matter to being was a fairly simple step at that point. And I encourage you to consider understanding this, that the choice you have to make this distinction between the thinker and the thoughts is the single greatest step that you can possibly make in your journey to understanding who you truly are and your relationship to life in general. Not simply the life that you see with your five physical senses, but also the life that is the vital flow of consciousness through that body that you are hearing these words in, through that mind of thought that is comprehending these words that you're hearing. But all of this can be surrendered, and you can still remain very much aware, but you're not simply aware of your individuality. You're aware of a very broad awareness of relationships that you have with all other things, places and spaces and times. There is a level of freedom that you can even possess while you're in that body that you're in. There's a level of freedom that you can possess while you're in that body right now, simply by beginning the process of making the distinction between yourself as the thinker and the part of you that has the thoughts. They are different. The part of you that is the thinker and the part of you that is the thought. Now, if you were able to put all of your thoughts aside for even a few minutes while you're listening, and you could just simply put those thoughts aside, there is an emergence of the self that occurs. Not the self of the personality, not the self of your conditioning. There is a self of you that is quite delightful and delicious when you realize that you are it. It is not describable, but it can be described in words that closely approximate it for your mind to begin to be attracted to it, because ultimately you want your mind to be attracted to being consumed by your willingness to let it go, because that is what has happened when you are able to deliberately and intentionally let your thoughts go. Then you've basically bitten the fruit and taken it off the tree, and now there is no longer a mind there to think of it as self, as separate from anything else. And there's a greater relationship that begins to emerge in your understanding of a mindless state. A mindless state does not necessitate being unaware. It's quite the opposite. Your awareness is significantly greater than what you comprehend from a state where your thoughts do not dominate the nature of your attentions, which, again, thought limits the nature of your attentions predominantly to the conditions of what you call your body and the environment that you currently experience. It is not too difficult when you make that first step between you as the awareness observing thought and you as the one as awareness that can release yourself from it. The release is literally the consuming of the ego. The release is the consuming of the ego, where your thoughts and your history and even the personal identity that you believe that you possess as an individual in this world, when they are surrendered, you are literally stepping away from the limited self into a greater self that is part of you, regardless of whether you believe you are or are not. There is a certain simplicity that you experience when your mind no longer distracts you. And when your mind no longer distracts you, there is at first a feeling of peace. And that feeling of peace is a place where a lot of people pause. Some for many days, weeks, hours, some for many years, or even many lifetimes. You can pause in that beautiful place where there is no mind. And it is a wondrous and delightful experience to be in peace, but it is not the final step. And a lot of people can be in that peace and believe this is it. I am here. There is no here, and there is no there. There is simply a movement of expanding consciousness. That's the best way I can put it. The only way to really understand it is to experience it. And it begins with ending of the thinking mind, the part of you that attempts to monitor and control what is being said or not said, and to restore yourself to the observational awareness where you begin to become curious about why these thoughts are those thoughts and why those emotions are those emotions. And you make that first step from the personality to the awareness that you are independent of those thoughts, independent of the body, but not separate from it. That first step is very fun when it is made. To experience your mind having no thought gives you a sense of freedom. The sense of freedom moves you towards what you would call a state of peace. And that state of peace begins to move you to a state of self-appreciation, where you begin to actually appreciate the nature of what you are as a being, which is not simply a sack of flesh and bone. The nature of what you are as consciousness stands in great contrast to the nature of your individuality as a personality, as a body. That distinction, once made, moves you from peace to what I call the proactive state of love, where now you are liberated from mind, you're liberated from body, and you're liberated from comfort. That comfort you get from being in that peaceful state where you need not have nor give, you are simply being. But that is not the state you want to be in for too long. You want to get to this place that is called love, which is the conscious, from my experiences now, is the conscious and present integration of your consciousness with the dynamic movement of all things simultaneously working together in unison to simply act as one creative force throughout all points of existence, all dimensional planes. And there is a feeling, very childlike feeling, that is experienced as your awareness, much the same way as you can watch little children in this physical world when they play without any concern. They are so wholly and completely taken with the action of their being through matter that there is no reference point for the self localized to anything other than the state of being in the experience of being. And there's no comparison, there's no weighing, there's no measuring. There's simply the dynamic interaction of an integrated spirit working throughout all points of time and space, even in that child, where you see them so deeply and intently focused, being and doing, undistracted, but they work with everything else simultaneously. To get to that place of freedom is love. That ultimately is what love, from my experience and the way I'm able to communicate it through this form at this time, is literally the freedom to be part of an infinite spectrum of a dynamic consciousness that functions freely throughout all points of itself, with absolutely no conflict with itself. So that even the appearance of conflict is still obeying this rule of the expression of limitless love. The light of consciousness, when you experience the love of your being, then you move towards the process of what I call light, where you are simply able to illuminate and shine forth limitless possibilities into the creation and experience of your being, which includes everything, all points of time and space. There is a great wonder of being this vibration of love and light, the illumination of consciousness, unrestrictedly expressing itself through all points of time and space. It is quite delicious and remarkable, to say the least. When I made my transition, I had already come to the understanding that I was not my body and I was not my thoughts. The two most challenging obstacles, if I can use that word, to making the transition from biology and mind to consciousness was fairly simple. But I'd also come to the conclusion in those final days, I'd also come to the conclusion that the recognition of being as I was could not be bound to this world, because the only thing that can bind you to this world are two things: fear and desire. Those are the only two things that can keep you bound in matter for many lifetimes. The transition many people make over many lifetimes, but it can be made in a single lifetime if you understand the nature of what I've been saying thus far. That really coming to the understanding that your thoughts and your body are not that which defines you. They're simply housing your consciousness till you come to the understanding of who you are. Kind of like a child that's growing out of clothing because it is simply growing physically. So too your consciousness goes through a similar growth where you literally outgrow the need for matter. But this is a natural progression that must be deliberately engaged in, just like the act of learning to take steps must be deliberately engaged in, or the act of learning anything new. There's something that has to be engaged in order for that understanding of what is being sought must be experienced by interacting. In your willingness to be able to relinquish your thoughts, you will find much more in the way of knowledge and information become available to you when you begin to surrender your attachment to your personal identity. The next step then is to not even be attached to having limitless knowledge, so that you can experience fully and completely, because having knowledge, again, keeps you in a place of a different form of mind. Even if you call it divine mind, that's capable of comprehending a much broader spectrum of awareness, that too can be a limit to the individuals listening that are pursuing this journey of love and light. It is truly the nature of what you are, but you cannot grasp that as a concept, for again, a concept limits you to the nature of the concept, as equally as any considerations would do the same thing. To literally release your personal attachment to a finite identity while simultaneously embracing something greater than yourself without seeking to possess it or own it, but to simply recognize I am that I am, then you will discover the true statement of you are love, you are light. It is difficult for one to actualize that in this physical world. Not impossible, but very difficult. There are many, such as myself, that have found it easier to make that transition by going through the process of deliberate surrendering of attachment to thoughts, of attachment to things as the source of one's identity. And yet there are a small handful of individuals that are engaged in this process of surrender, even while in a physical body, and choosing to remain in that state of limitlessness while functioning through a physical form. When you come to the understanding and comprehension of the limitlessness of consciousness when fully embraced without being possessed, then you move into a state of fearlessness where you are able to move and allow yourself to appear and come and go without any complaint, without any resistance to it. The first step I want to reiterate before I open up to taking some questions, that the moment you make the decision that there is a distinction between your thoughts and who you are, that there is a distinction between your awareness and your body, that is the first step away from the bondage that many of you have to the exclusivity of matter. And many of you believe that matter is the only place for your identity to be discovered and realized. It is not. Your body and your thoughts are not the only places from which you acquire identity. For as awareness, aware of thoughts, aware of body, there is a new self that emerges in that point of perception. And that new self, as it emerges into that point of perception, becomes open to other possibilities not available in your thinking mind or your physical world. There is information and knowledge that transcends much of what you see here in this physical dimension, even now. The question of love is not so much a question of something to be possessed or held. The question of love is the experience of your being without a governance or an attachment, with a deep and profound respect and acceptance for the movement of all things through time and space, without seeking to control any of them, and recognizing the nature of your being is organizing those affairs for you, so you have no concern with that. And is not that love to know that your life is sustained and maintained, and that the wonder of your consciousness does not have to be reduced down to a few moments of time and space or a single lifetime, that the nature of your consciousness is defined in infinite terms, that this concept of life everlasting is literally quite true from the perspective of what you are as a being. And you can toy and play with the little things of this world, but they will simply keep you little and in this world, and again, for some of you, for many lifetimes. My reason for coming to this one was simply to share what my experiences have loaned themselves to my liberation and my freedom, what little I can offer you. And I stress that it is very little what I offer you, because if I offered you too much, your mind would be very excited about the knowledge, and I would simply be putting you back in the same position of trying to get excited about understanding and knowing new information while you're in that physical body. And really, ultimately, what I would like to have you experience is the truth of what you are. That first move of awareness over thought, awareness over body, is the very first step that any of you seeking to find your way from what you call your suffering, from what you call your life. It is not your life that suffers, it's you that suffers, believing that you are simply that individual body, that collection of thoughts that you find yourself observing and repeating every day. You are this awareness, and again, this is but a step. And it took me many years to achieve that place of awareness, that distinction of being versus body, mind. And as you come to make that distinction for yourselves, the letting go process takes on a whole new understanding. And when I say letting go, I mean literally having no attachment to having to be a certain way under any conditions other than the way you are. And I'm not talking about the way you are as a function of personality or memory. I'm talking about yourself as a function of consciousness that is connected in a most elegant way to everything simultaneously. Such subtleties cannot be experienced or understood from the perspective of your personality that cannot grasp anything beyond what it can measure through the concepts it's acquired, the science, the information, the knowledge that you believe to be true or not true, really confines you to it, that information. And what I'm saying offers you a way to be unconfined, to open the cage, if you like, to let your soul step away from the construct or confines of your personality so that you can really be liberated. When I first came to this one, the vibrational awareness that is experienced when you come in contact with something greater than what your thoughts can comprehend, greater than what your body can perceive with its senses, there is an immediate liberation. Much the same way as you can take a drop of water and put it on a burning hot skillet, and that drop of water literally evaporates. So too, when you come into contact with something greater in potential than you, and you surrender to that, you will be transformed. You will be altered irrevocably. And for those of you that may for the first time be considering the idea that you are not your thoughts, that you are not the emotions that are connected to those thoughts, that you are not simply the body that you are inhabiting at this time, and you begin to consider that, it begs the next question then: who are you as this thinker? Who are you as this thinker? And that question takes you away from your need to be imprisoned or confounded by the conditions of the world, attached to them and letting them distract you. For now you're not looking to the world as the source for your goodness, your nature, and who you are. You're looking elsewhere. And you will not find in this world what you would call a state of heaven, although that is a possibility. But you will not find this state of liberation, of love, of light that you're seeking through your attachment to your thoughts and that body. Nor can you find it through the attempt to get away from the body and mind in other means. For the journey must be one that is consciously undertaken, and you must be able to recognize that there's a clear distinction between what you are as a being and what your thoughts are and what your body is. Without that proper distinction, you could certainly try to make this leap by removing the body through whatever means you might. You could choose to do that. But if you have not cultivated the awareness, then you will not make that transition. You'll simply return back into another form. So understand that the journey must be consciously undertaken. The process of meditation, which in my latter years, my former years, were very specific on recognizing that meditation is the key to finding the doorway that opens you up to liberating yourself beyond the mind and body without having to accelerate the process unnecessarily. The deliberate act of meditation is not simply sitting in a chair and breathing. It's deliberately and intentionally seeking to know something more than what you know, to be something more than you think you are. The act of meditation is literally the act of surrender of mind, surrender of body, so that you become aware of who you are. And in that state of awareness, you find liberation, not simply in trying to get away from what you're uncomfortable with, but in discovering that which you are through the surrendering of your attachment to what you are not. I find it very intriguing and somewhat exciting that there are some of you that are well on the way to doing this, and you will discover as that intention becomes a reality to your experience of being, and that your mind and body will loan themselves to that process of surrender. In fact, the goodness and vitality that begins to emerge in the body as a result of becoming conscious of what you are, of who you are as a being, loans itself to altering and changing your experience of matter significantly, so that your purpose, your reason for being, can have the time necessary to be actualized before the physical body and mind naturally decline through the natural process of what you call the transmutation of energy, where energy in this physical dimension is in a constant and perpetual state of change and transmutation, which then lends itself to experiences of time. And those experiences of time you call a year or a day or a month or a lifetime or a century or a millennium or an age. It doesn't matter. That process of becoming liberated from that process of time only occurs consciously and deliberately. So I hope that you will continue in your pursuit of discovering your being and recognizing that it will also change the way that you will offer what you will offer to this world while you're in that body. Many of you are seeking to comprehend and understand purpose and what purpose is. And that can only be fully realized and understood when you know who you are. And most of you have not been able to make that distinction of who you are independent of thoughts and that localized identity called the body. But once you make that transition from identification with thought and matter to being, purpose and your function here becomes available to you. And it is available to you even right now. And I can say to you of a great truth, that if you choose in all good faith to operate from a perspective of what love would be or do, you will find that your mind and body will shift very quickly. The vibrational nature of your being, of what you are, the vibrational nature of what you are, will necessitate the unfoldment of your purpose through mind and body. You will receive what some of you call them downloads that you will receive into your mind. I received many of those in the life that I'd had as the personality you understood me to be. I'd had many inspirations and downloads come to me because my pursuit was to know who I was. And if that becomes your pursuit, to know who you are, then you too will begin to receive guidance and inspiration that will loan itself as steps for others to take, a light for others to see and follow. Yes, and I think that about covers it. That first step, once undertaken, begins you in the process of liberation, that you are not your thoughts, you are not that body, but you are a being that can utilize thought and utilize body as mechanisms to allow the natural expression of your being as it is from consciousness, and not simply from the constructed self that you've been given by this world. Wow, thank you. Wow, what an incredible day. Thank you, thank you. I hope that you guys can feel what he's giving us right now energetically. It's quite remarkable that we have this opportunity to make that distinction. Let's see if we have any questions. Good morning, Adam. Good morning, Jenny. Hi. Hello, Anthony. Hello. Hello, Kira. Hello, Daniela. Hi, Grace. Yeah, his energy is so calming. I can feel what he means when he's speaking about the transition he made from personality. He says I can use the word divinity, from personality to divinity. It's it's literally like stepping just into a whole new realm. I'm trying to find words for the wordless, so forgive me. But let's get in here. Hi, Drusilla. Hello, Sandra. Welcome. If you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and click the notification bell so you know when we come live again. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Grace. Hi, Ruth. Hello, Sanctuary on the Clouds. I like that. That's a really good one. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, Lexi. Hi, great. Yeah, if you're here, leave a question and answer a question. So here we go. Benjamin's asking, can you ask Dr. Dyer what he recommends to eat for a diet? Much love. Um, he's saying it's really important that you consider what is compatible for you. And I'm not referring simply to the body. I'm referring to your awareness that what you put in the body is right for it. Your body can only perceive what is good or not good for it based on its sensorial apprehension of sensation. In other words, you can give the body that's something very bad for it, but if it's sensationally exciting to the body will consume it. As awareness, I had come to discover that there was a sensitivity in my awareness that I could see and know what is actually good and not good for the body. I came to understand that there were very specific foods, mostly raw, that were in fact in alignment with the nature of my being. So the nature of the foods that I consumed were based on the vibrational awareness that felt more in alignment with who I am rather than the sensations of the body. It was quite the journey to move from a conventional way of being to where I understood and became sensitive myself, not to what my senses were telling me, but what I began to know was actually causing my body to be in greater alignment to what I am, rather than myself becoming in alignment with the sensations of the body, which most of you do. So please understand, becoming sensitive as awareness, you can eat something like an apple and feel the vibration of the apple, be aware of the vibration, not simply the sensation of taste, but to become aware of the vibration that you experience as awareness of that substance. You can even hold food in front of you and feel the vibration. You, awareness, can be aware of the vibration of food. And it is through that awareness of the vibration of things that I began to discover what was most compatible for my body in order for it to be as optimally effective as possible for my expression through it. Wow. That's a great question, Benjamin. Thank you very much. Hello, Silver King. Hi, Drusilla. Yes. Question from Jenny. I've heard some spiritual teachers say to not stay in vibration of higher self. Why would one not want to? They stated being able to be in 3D world is this separation duality. You must understand that in the process of surrendering, that is giving up your attachment to a finite identity, another self emerges, and there is no ultimate self. The process of recognizing that there is a greater self doesn't stop at one level. The process of releasing attachment to a specific sense of identity or self is essential for limitless evolution. Many of you come into the physical form simply at the beginning stages of awakening, of knowing that you are not simply that body that you find yourself in, or that you are not simply that collection of thoughts in your mind, that when you surrender those things, there is another self that you move into, much the same way as when the baby leaves the womb and comes into this world, it becomes another self independent of that environment. So too, when you surrender your mind, your attachment to your thoughts, your attachment to that body, you do not give them up. You simply surrender that they are not governing you. You emerge into a new state of being. And in that state of being, you still have awareness of matter. You still have awareness of thought. You still have awareness of mind. You still have awareness of these things, but you're not attached to them. And there is a greater level of awareness too, for even in your awareness, independent of thought and body, there is a greater expansion of self that continues. And that expansion of self goes on as long as time will ever exist. There is no final destination of a complete self. There's simply the self being and evolving, much the same way as you could look at the rings in the cross section of a tree and see that the rings continue to expand and expand and expand. And there are trees on this planet that would, again, if you were to see them, you'd see many thousands and thousands of rings in some of these trees. Given the right environment and circumstances and planetary system, those trees could literally grow to hundreds of thousands or even millions of years if the environmental conditions are favorable to that. So too your consciousness does the same thing, continues to expand and expand and expand as the process of being, releasing, acquiring, expanding goes on eternally. And yes, relative to the one before, the one that follows is always more expansive and dynamic than the other. Wow, thank you, Jenny. Wonderful. Question from Moran. I dreamed of a donkey. A watery bubble of green light came out of him, and inside was a baby donkey. People tried to kill him, and I kept trying to protect him. What is the message, please? Yes. Your soul is awakening. Understand, your soul is awakening. The distinction between who you are, your thoughts and your body, is a birth. When you become aware that you are not your thoughts, that is a birth. So you become aware that you are no longer the thoughts, you are now the thinker. That is a birth. And it is a very delicate time in one's spiritual evolution to make that distinction between thoughts and thinker. It is literally a birth of the self beyond mind. If you understand this, then you will see that this is a process that you're engaged in. And yes, you do need to, I wouldn't say protect that part of yourself. I would more say you simply need to nurture it, which is what clearly you are doing in that process of protecting this from the world, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're protecting yourself from being lost in this world again. For that's where many people are stuck, believing that this world and their thoughts are the sole place of their existence. It is not. It is just one step, but a very deliberate and what must become a very conscious step in your evolution of being. Thank you, Moran. Very good question. Question from Lauren. How can I get out of this funk I've been in? He's saying, drop it. Stop holding on to your funk. Put it in a suitcase and put it away somewhere. The funk is not you, but the funk enables you to make the distinction that you are not the funk. And the moment you realize that funk that I am observing is not who I am, again, the process of non-attachment becomes very conscious and deliberate where you are now. The process of non-attachment becomes very deliberate from where you are right now. So you are aware of the funk, but the funk is not you. Your awareness recognizes that this funk is not me, but the surrendering of it, the saying, the clarity of understanding that this is not who I am. To sit in quiet repose and simply recognize and observe your funk in the process of meditation loans itself to gaining this understanding, to simply sit and observe the funk, to recognize you are simply a watcher, and to stay in that position of observing without judging, without seeking to destroy or remove or change. Just be in the observation of it. And just simply observing will be enough to cause the change that you're seeking. Wow. Thank you, Lauren. Great question. Great answer. Thank you. Okay. Question from Vickle. Is asking Spirit for guidance, how can I be of service today, a means to liberate oneself from earthly desire? that is certainly a question, but again, if you find your mind is the one that you're asking the question of, then you're going to find it very difficult to get an answer from a mind that is already predisposed to believe that you understand certain things. But if you come from the perspective of not seeking to grasp or find the answer, but to simply engage in the awareness that there is an answer to that question, but you do not need to grab it or find it, simply that there is an answer to that question and you're open to it. Again, many of you will try to find the answer in your thinking mind. You will not find answers that are not inside your mind, that are outside of it. You will not find those answers in your mind. And a lot of you will ask that very question. I've received many questions like this when I was in the body, that how do I be of service? How do I open up to that? And my simple answer to that is this, that you release your attachment to trying to get the answer and simply be open to being of service. Simply be open to being of service. Do not be attached to what you think that should or shouldn't be. For that service can be something as simple as you get a phone call and somebody asks you to give them a hand, or you're walking down the street and you see somebody needs assistance with something. While you're in this dimension, service is one thing, purpose is another. Understand that. And for some, their purpose is to serve, but for others, their purpose is other. Understanding that wanting to be of service is a natural compulsion of spirit. That desire to be of service is a natural compulsion and function of spirit that beats your heart right now, that is constantly serving you. That is its nature. So be open to serving as you're given opportunities to serve. That is the simplest answer. Thank you, Vertical. Question from Drusilla. When I start to let go, I get nauseous and I feel like I can't breathe. Any message on this? Yes. Well, your body will do everything it can to hold you because it believes that its life is dependent upon you. And to a great extent, your body's life is dependent upon you, for you are the one taking care of it. It is on loan to you while you gain the knowledge necessary to move on to the next stage of your being. That sensation of nauseousness, again, your body is going to interpret things at the level that it is at. But the most immediate solution for you is to simply not try to force anything, not try to make anything happen, to just allow the process without your judgment of whether it is good or whether it is not good, to simply be present, to allow yourself to simply observe and be aware in the nature of your observational perception as an awareness, simply observing without an attempt to an ends or an outcome, but simply the being of observation will be enough for you to observe the transformation to spontaneously happen, because your role will not be engaged in a vested interest or outcome. If you've got a predisposition to a certain outcome, well, then you're going to have some conflict. And you're seeking to be free, then you must be free. So to simply observe that when you find that experience of letting go, just be aware. Allow the body to go through what it goes through. Do not judge it. Do not get caught up in the body saying, I'm uncomfortable. Just simply be present. Allow. Stay present. Do not get attached to the symptoms, but simply observe what you observe from a place without your judgment, without saying this is good or this is bad. If you make that judgment, then you set the stage for a very specific creative experience then. But to simply observe and allow the dynamic transformation that's trying to unfold for you, to allow that dynamic change that's trying to unfold for you to naturally unfold. Just observe. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Drusilla. Great question. Wonderful. I've got time for two more questions. From Nancy, most people can't let go of thoughts. Will we have to stay and reincarnate in 3D reality even though we want to ascend so badly? He's laughing. He's saying, if you're wanting something, it makes it very difficult to actually have the thing that you really want. You're seeking to find liberation from something, but you keep holding on to it. Again, the process of being necessitates a very different relationship with thought and action than thought and action in a preconceived state will allow you to perform. That place where you are subjective to what you already know can only give you more of what you already know. It cannot offer you anything separate and distinct from itself. The mind cannot do that. The mind cannot offer you anything new other than what is within it. And so you'll find yourself, again, trying to get away from something that you're attached to. You simply have to let it go. And I use that term very carefully, for I cultivated a distinction in my awareness over my mind and my body that allowed me to begin to evolve. I did not try to get rid of my mind or body. I simply became more aware of who I am, my mind and body, as a result of the knowledge and information that became available to me in my pursuit of something more than what I knew, afforded itself and loaned itself to the transformation of my mind and body. So that the time of my transition was in direct ratio to my evolution of myself, from this state of limited being in mind and body to a more relatively expansive self. But it was a conscious journey. It cannot be undertaken automatically. It must be a conscious journey. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. Last question for today. Question from Fahadiba. I would like to thank Dr. Dyer for the role that he played in my journey in this lifetime. Will asking the question, am I that I am, assist in creating this collective awareness? Yes, as long as the subject and the object are clearly understood. This statement, I am that I am, must not be related to the identity of an individual. Again, I am is a much broader perspective of being than what you currently understand. The very nature of what you are is separate and distinct from thought and body. Once your attachment to the sense of your identity as being exclusive of what you think, what you know, and the body, you then begin to open up to the actuality that's beyond what you know. But again, there are different levels of releasing and grasping, holding, letting go. The evolution of your soul and consciousness are dependent on your ability to deliberately be willing to grab something and then to be willing to release it, to not simply remain attached to one place, space, or time. You will find the awareness of what you call I am, that you are, your soul, your awareness, that place of being aware that thought is not you, but you are aware of thought, that body is not you, but you are aware of body. That contemplating that awareness that you are will assist you in making the step that you're seeking to make right now. Contemplating not the thought that you are aware of, nor the body you are aware of, but contemplating what are you that is aware, what are you that is aware. And in that, the statement, I am that I am, will take on a new meaning to you. But for an ego or a personality to say, I am that I am, is not enough to fully be able to experience, to contemplate and feel what you are, will give you the step that you're seeking to find liberation from. Wow. Thank you so much. So I just want to go through a few announcements. So tomorrow's meditation is going to be on attuning to love. Attuning to love. And I don't know who's coming through tomorrow, so that'll be a surprise. That's going to be at 10 a.m. on Supernatural Saturday. Meditations on attuning to love. Next week, what have we got going on next week? So next week, on February the 22nd, it's called The Quickening of Ascension with, he's calling himself Mercury, and he labels himself as a divine entity. So that's The Quickening of Ascension. That'll be this Monday, February the 22nd on Shortcut for Soul at 10 a.m. And on February the 24th, Altering Your Body's Frequency. That's next Wednesday. Altering Your Body's Frequency with Lord Krishna. I'm really excited about that one. Altering Your Body's Frequency with Lord Krishna. And that's going to be next Wednesday. On next Friday, February the 26th, Ascension Now. And that's going to be with Master Katumi, discussing Ascension Now. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming today and sharing your valuable and precious time with us. I want to thank Master Dyer for being present with us today. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. It's been a delight for me, more than words can express. And I want to thank everybody that supports this channel. You can do so through my Patreon page, patreon.com/William Michael Forbes. And again, thank you for your precious time. I'll look forward to seeing you guys at the meditation tomorrow at 10 a.m. I want to wish you all much, much love and have yourselves a wonderful and joyful day. Bye for now.